July 17, 2015, 11:42 p.m. Beverly Hills. The afterparty is louder than the premiere. Champagne glasses collide, camera flashes burst like small lightning strikes against marble walls. A studio executive leans across a velvet couch and says the number again, slower this time, just to feel it in the air. 100 million, 3 pictures, back in points. Across the room, the actor smiles for photographs. Tailored tuxedo, relaxed posture, the face of a global franchise. Outside, fans are still gathered behind barricades chanting the character's name, not his. Inside, he nods politely as another producer explains international projections. China pre-sales, theme park expansion, spin-off potential. Everything is expanding. Except him. You can almost feel it, the strange stillness behind the smile. The way he glances just once toward the exit hallway, not dramatically, just a flicker. Because at this moment, at the peak of cultural dominance, the decision has already been made. He will walk away. Not publicly, not yet. There will be no announcement tonight, no dramatic speech, no scandal to hide behind, only a quiet refusal that will ripple through an industry built on constant availability. But right now, nobody in this room knows that. They only see momentum. Over the last 5 years, his face has been everywhere. Streaming thumbnails, airport billboards, fast food cups, his character's silhouette recognizable in a single frame. Analysts call him bankable. Trade magazines use the phrase reliable tentpole anchor. Reliable. It sounds like praise, it feels like a cage. Because franchise success is not just visibility, it's repetition, same press junkets, same late-night couch jokes, same action beats written months before shooting begins. The scripts arrive polished and predetermined. The illusion of choice narrows with each sequel. Contracts quietly expand, option clauses, scheduling blocks, morality provisions, appearance obligations. The actor signs them, of course he does, everyone does. But something changes when your calendar is mapped 5 years in advance. When every award season conversation circles back to the same fictional universe. When journalists ask, not what do you want to make next, but how long will you stay in this role? How long will you stay here? That question lingers. In private, he has begun asking different ones. When was the last time he disappeared? When was the last time an audience missed him? Hollywood rarely rewards absence. The machine thrives on saturation. Algorithms favor familiarity. Studios calculate risk in quarters, not decades. Yet history whispers something different. The rarest commodity in entertainment isn't talent. It's restraint. Weeks after that premiere, negotiations intensify. Agents push, managers strategize. The studio increases the offer. Performance bonuses escalate with box office milestones. There's talk of producer credits now, symbolic power layered onto financial power. He listens. He thanks them. Then he asks for time. Not hours, not days. Time. It confuses everyone, because in Hollywood hesitation reads like weakness or ingratitude or worse, ego. But this isn't ego, it's inventory. He has started to feel the psychological compression of overexposure. The way constant heroism on-screen begins to blur into public expectation off-screen. The way strangers project invincibility onto you at airports. And the strangest part. Success amplifies the isolation. The more visible you become, the more curated your access to the world becomes. Security teams, controlled interactions, media filters. He has everything. Except silence. Late one night, alone in a glass-walled study overlooking Los Angeles, he opens a script that isn't a franchise sequel. It's smaller, character-driven, no explosions, no universe to save. Just a flawed human story. He reads it in one sitting. And for the first time in years, he feels something unfamiliar. Uncertainty. Real risk, the kind that doesn't guarantee international box office dominance. That's when the realization settles in. He doesn't want more scale. He wants space. The decision, when it finally leaves his mouth in a closed-door meeting, is almost anticlimactic. I'm stepping back. Silence. Not quitting, not retiring. Stepping back. The executives blink, they pivot to compromise, shorter contract, fewer appearances, higher pay. But he isn't negotiating upward. He's negotiating downward. The room shifts because this isn't how leverage is supposed to work. Power in Hollywood traditionally means expansion, more control, more projects, more visibility. He is choosing contraction. And that choice, quiet, controlled, deliberate, sends a subtle tremor through the structure of modern franchise filmmaking. The headlines won't explode. There will be carefully worded statements about scheduling and creative exploration. The machine will keep spinning. But behind studio walls, a question has begun to circulate. What happens when the most bankable face in the room refuses to be permanently available? The answer will change more than one career. The calls start the next morning. Not angry, not yet. Confused. An agent sits at a polished conference table on Wilshire Boulevard, phone pressed tight to his ear. On the other end, a senior studio executive lowers his voice. Is he testing us? Testing, as if this were a bluff in a high-stakes poker game. But it isn't a bluff. It's exhaustion with polish. Over the past decade, the actor's schedule has been engineered with military precision. Global press tour plotted like campaign routes. Tokyo, London, Sao Paulo, Los Angeles, repeat. Smiles at 9 a.m., interviews at 9:07, soundbite at 9:14. You can almost hear it, the rhythm of repetition. What does this character mean to you? How does it feel to carry the franchise? Will you ever walk away? He always answered the last one with a grin. Now the grin feels prophetic. Because somewhere between sequel 2 and sequel 3, the applause began to sound distant, not ungrateful, just muted, as if it were happening behind glass. Psychologists call it identity diffusion, when a role becomes so culturally dominant that it begins to absorb the person playing it. At airports, fans don't shout his name, they shout the character. Children approach him with the expectation of invincibility. Interviewers ask him to comment on fictional world building as if it were personal philosophy. The character has gravity. And gravity pulls. There's an unspoken truth in Hollywood: when a franchise succeeds, it doesn't just create revenue streams, it creates dependency, for studios, for shareholders, for entire production ecosystems. Hundreds of crew members plan their lives around sequel timelines. Theme parks design expansions. Streaming platforms build marketing algorithms around his face. Walking away isn't just a personal choice. It's a structural disruption. That realization weighs heavily. Late one afternoon, seated alone in his car after a charity event, he scrolls through social media. Clips of himself in costume, slow-motion edits, tribute videos set to orchestral music. He watches as if observing a stranger. There's pride there, of course there is. But there's also something else. Stagnation. Because creative growth requires friction, and friction is rare when everything you touch turns profitable. Studio notes become gentler, risks are minimized, scripts are optimized for global clarity, fewer ambiguities, cleaner arcs. The edges soften. And when edges soften long enough, so does instinct. In a private meeting weeks later, his longtime acting coach says something blunt. You haven't been scared in years. The sentence lands harder than any critic's review. Fear in the artistic sense is oxygen, it sharpens choices, it keeps performances alive. Without it, even excellence becomes mechanical. That's when the pause transforms from vague idea into necessity. Not rebellion, not reinvention. Recalibration. He begins declining appearances first, award show presentations, cameo opportunities, brand partnerships tied to the franchise aesthetic. Each no feels small. But collectively they create distance. Studios notice. Because absence has metrics. Search trends dip slightly, social chatter shifts, not dramatically but enough for analysts to flag volatility. Volatility is a word executives dislike. They prefer predictability. So new offers arrive, sweeter, broader, more generous, executive producer credits, creative consultation promises, even partial ownership stakes in expanded universe content. They are trying to convert hesitation into deeper entanglement. And for a moment it almost works. Ownership is seductive, influence sounds like freedom. But he understands something crucial: ownership inside a machine is not the same as autonomy outside it. One night, walking through his home without lights on, city skyline glowing beyond the windows, he confronts the real fear beneath everything. What if he steps away and the audience doesn't wait? Scarcity can elevate. It can also erase. Hollywood history is filled with actors who paused and returned to a colder reception. A new generation rises quickly. Algorithms adapt faster than loyalty. The risk isn't financial. It's relevance. And relevance in this industry feels like oxygen. But then comes the turning point. A table read for the smaller script, the one without explosions. No press, no entourage, just a modest room and a circle of actors holding printed pages. As he reads the first scene, something unexpected happens. Silence. Not the loud silence of stadium applause. The intimate silence of attention. Other actors lean in, listening, responding. He isn't carrying a cinematic universe. He's carrying a moment. And for the first time in years, his pulse quickens before delivering a line. That's fear. Real artistic fear. When the read ends, no one mentions box office projections. No one discusses toy sales or international rollout strategy. They talk about subtext, character flaws, emotional contradictions. Driving home, he doesn't turn on the radio. He sits with the quiet. Because now the pause is no longer about escaping pressure. It's about reclaiming authorship over his own evolution. And when the official statement finally goes out, carefully worded, diplomatic, neutral, the public reads it as scheduling logistics. But inside studio boardrooms, something more unsettling is dawning. If one of the most profitable actors alive can voluntarily step off the treadmill, what leverage does constant availability really create? The machine has always assumed that stars need it more than it needs them. That assumption is about to be tested. September 3, 2016, 6:18 a.m. Burbank. A studio analytics team stares at a screen filled with trend lines. International pre-sales remain strong, merchandising projections stable, but something subtle has shifted. Audience engagement metrics are flattening, not collapsing, just cooling. The face that once dominated every trailer slot is no longer saturating the cycle. Because he kept his word. No surprise cameos. No convention appearances. No cryptic teasers hinting at a return. He vanished correctly. And Hollywood doesn't quite know what to do with that. The smaller film premieres quietly months later. No global press tour, no fireworks budget, just film festivals, controlled interviews, long-form conversations about craft. Critics respond first. They use a word that hasn't been associated with him in years. Unpredictable. It spreads. Audiences who only knew him as an untouchable hero now see fragility, moral ambiguity, silence between lines. And something strange begins to happen. The absence that once looked risky now looks intentional. Calculated. Powerful. Because scarcity reframes value. Streaming platforms start competing for limited series concepts, darker, contained, character-driven, not franchises, events. Studios reapproach him, but the tone has changed. Less assumption. More inquiry. What would you want to build? That question had been dormant for years. Now it's central. This is where the power structure quietly shifts. For decades, franchise systems operated on a simple premise: scale creates dependency. The bigger the machine, the harder it is for the individual to detach from it. But his pause exposed something overlooked. The machine is also dependent on myth. And myth weakens with overexposure. By stepping away at peak profitability, not during decline, he disrupted the predictive model. He proved that demand doesn't only grow from presence. It can grow from restraint. Behind closed doors, contract language begins to evolve. Shorter commitment windows. Creative opt-out clauses. Back-end participation tied to development control, not just box office bonuses. Other A-list actors are watching carefully. Not publicly, quietly. Agents begin referencing his strategy in negotiations. Limited engagement. Creative hiatus window. Franchise cycling. New vocabulary enters the ecosystem. The studios adapt because they must. Content pipelines are expanding across streaming platforms at unprecedented speed. Talent scarcity becomes real, not just perceived. And when high-level talent demonstrates a willingness to disengage rather than overextend, leverage redistributes. But the most profound shift isn't contractual. It's psychological. In a rare interview months later, he speaks calmly about the pause, not defensively, not dramatically. I wanted to remember why I started. That's it. No scandal, no bitterness. Just clarity. You can see it in his posture, the absence of urgency, the steadiness in his voice. He doesn't look like someone who escaped something. He looks like someone who stepped outside long enough to see the architecture clearly. And the audience feels it. Because there is something deeply human about watching someone choose less when more is available. It contradicts cultural instinct. We are conditioned to chase expansion, bigger platform, bigger paycheck, bigger exposure. But expansion without reflection becomes dilution. The smaller projects begin performing steadily, not explosively but sustainably. Awards conversations re-enter the chat, not for spectacle but for nuance. A new generation of filmmakers approaches him differently, not as a mascot for scale but as a collaborator. The identity diffusion begins to reverse. He is no longer the character. He is an actor again. And then comes the final twist. When the studio eventually revives the franchise years later, they approach him not as an obligation but as a partner. Not you owe us. But if you're interested. The pause did not weaken his position. It fortified it. Because Hollywood recalibrates around those who prove they can survive outside its constant spotlight. And that's the hidden truth beneath the $100 million offer he once declined. It was never about the money. It was about timing. About protecting narrative longevity over immediate expansion. About understanding that legacy isn't built by constant visibility, but by controlled re-entry. In the end, the industry didn't collapse without him. It adjusted. And in adjusting, it quietly acknowledged a new power dynamic. The most valuable talent isn't the most available. It's the most deliberate.